Hello and welcome to Sunrise, where the Tampa Bay Lightning are hoping to keep their season alive against the Florida Panthers here in Game 5. It's a 3-1 series. We know that the Lightning have trailed, starting the series 3-0, and now it's time to see what they can do, hoping to make a historic comeback, something that's only been done 4 times in NHL history, and that's come back from a deficit of 3-0. So let's talk about a handful of storylines entering this contest here at Emirates Bank Arena. Let's go back to Game 4. Mikhail Sergachev comes back after fracturing his fibula and tibia on February 7th against the Rangers. John Cooper told us before the series even started that we should not expect Mikhail Sergachev at all in this series, and that if the Lightning do advance, we'll have a discussion. John Cooper also admitted to the media yesterday that the target date for Sergachev's return was the beginning of May. So technically, I guess if they were planning it out, maybe a Game 7, he would have came back to compete in it. But to see him come out there, something where his teammates did not even realize he was going to be able to suit up until the morning of, was a huge emotional boost. Beyond all the things he brings to the ice, because he's also still trying to get into game shape. To see him work his tail off to at least get a taste of games again was super impressive, and the ovation that he received from the Amalie Arena crowd before that contest, it is no surprise that the Lightning jumped out to a 3-0 lead, and they were able to nurse that lead the rest of the game. It got a little dicey, but they were able to figure it out to win 6-3, which at least gets them some positive momentum heading back on the road, which is where we are right now, hoping to head back to Tampa for Game 6, which would be Wednesday. And if they can win back-to-back games, heading back home, things start to snowball in the right direction for this team, and you never know. So one game at a time. This one's a real tough one. All 3 of their losses before Game 4 were really coin flips here inside this building. John Cooper pulls the goalie out a little soon. They go down 3-1. They score late, makes it 3-2. In Game 2, Sergei Bobrovsky makes the save of his life at a 2-2 game. Would have put the Bolts up 3-2. They end up going to overtime, and they lose. A place where they are 1-10 since 2011. Since 2011. Since 2021, they're 1-10 in the in overtime, and they lose that contest. Then in Game 3, very similar type of battle, just back and forth affair, and the Lightning weren't necessarily on their A game. The Panthers weren't really on their A game as well. They can't. The Bolts can't score on the power play, and that ultimately dooms them. But they played really well in the first and the third periods on Saturday, and hopefully they can piece together 60 minutes, because we haven't seen that from the Lightning at all this series. Usually they've come out in the first and have looked, for lack of a better word, bad. And then in the second, they turn it up. And in the third, they look pretty good as well. Game 4 was the only time we saw them look great in period 1 and bad in period 2. So what do they have to do today to win? They still got to lean on El Capitone, Steven Stamkos. This man is on fire right now. He has 5 goals in 4 games. He has scored in every single game of this series thus far. He leads the Eastern Conference with goals. And you wonder, while we're here, is this the last game we are going to see Steven Stamkos in a Lightning sweater? Personally, in my opinion, I don't think that is the case, but it is a worry because he is entering free agency once the Lightning are done. And with one more loss, it's all over. So Steven Stamkos is certainly making his mark known on this postseason run. He's trying to tie Rick Tocchet for the most consecutive goals to start a playoff series from a player 34 or older, which just kind of shows the longevity of his career, what he's still able to do. He's a specialist in his office, but he's found ways to score at other points in his series. He scored twice in Game 4. One was from his office on the power play. The other was just a slick wrister. In Game 3, he scored in front of the net in the second period to kind of get the Bolts going. So you do just kind of wonder how long he can keep it up and what happens when Steven Stamkos does not score a goal, right? Who's going to pick up that production? We saw Brandon Hagel score a couple of goals in Game 4. We saw Tyler Mott in Game 3 score a goal. Nikita Kucherov has yet to score a goal in this series. He has 6 assists. He had 3 in Game 4. It was really the first time we saw him make an impact in this series, but overall, the Panthers have locked up Nikita Kucherov. He has not done much. It's no surprise that Kuch in Game 4 has a great performance. They win. In Games 1, 2, and 3, not so much, and they lose. So he's an MVP candidate. He needs to be the head of the snake, and right now Florida has figured out how to limit him. You can't do it every game, as we saw in Game 4, but overall, Kuch is going to be necessary, as well as trying to capitalize on the penalties. I'm sure the Panthers in that locker room are talking about, we got to stop heading to the sin bin. They were frustrated in Game 4. They gave up a 5-on-3 late. Even in Game 3, the Bolts did not commit any penalties. Meanwhile, the Panthers awarded the Bolts 4 of them. The Lightning could not connect on any of them. One they did, but they went offsides. But the Panthers have been racking up penalty minutes, and something they did not do in Sunrise was find the penalty box, because the Lightning are not a great 5-on-5 team, but if you give them the 5-on-4, certainly the 5-on-3, they're going to find ways to score eventually, and the power play finally broke through in that last game. Certainly worth mentioning, Darren Radish was considered day-to-day by John Cooper. Radish and Nick Perbix did not play in Game 4. I mean, Radish played the entire season, so for him not to play Game 4 is significant news. We know that Perbix was banged up as well, and he played most of the year as well, I should say, because Max Crozier and Emil Lilleberg were the final defensive pairing. I mean, that's a little bit of a risk from John Cooper to throw that tandem out there, a group that has become very familiar with how they play based on their time in Syracuse together. But they are some young dudes, and to be thrust into this moment is pretty significant. The defense in this series has been pretty good for the Lightning. I think it got a little shakier there in Game 3, certainly in the second period of Game 4. But you have to be happy with what the Lightning have done defensively, considering that was the biggest area of critique for this team. But we will ultimately see what will happen once they take the ice today, because as John Cooper has told us, they're going to shove on them and vice versa. There are going to be different ebbs and flows of this game. How do you withstand those waves? And for most of the series, the Panthers have found ways to limit the damage, and the Lightning have not done as well. So a reminder, the Lightning take on the Florida Panthers at 7 o'clock here from Sunrise. If they win, it's back home for Game 6, trailing 3-2, with that matchup inside Amalie Arena on Wednesday. If they were to make it to a Game 7, which, by the way, has only happened 9 times ever in NHL history, where a team has made it 3-3. So I mentioned before, 4 teams have completed the comeback, winning 4 in a row to win in 7 games. 9 teams in total have made it to just 3-3. So if they can do that, we'll be right back here in Sunrise Saturday night, so we think. Game times still have not been decided from Wednesday or Saturday. But ultimately, down 3-1, the climb continues. The Florida Panthers, who made it to the Stanley Cup final last year, they're a tough cookie. It's going to be really, really difficult to be a caliber of opponent like this back to back to back to back times. But if there is someone who can pull it off, it is an organizational squad like the Lightning, who have champions in that locker room, champion head coach, a lot of experience. They don't get flustered very easily. They do stay calm, so they're going to have to bring their A game, and it's hard to play with that sort of desperation, time in and time out. So once again, you can check me out at 6 o'clock on 10 Tampa Bay. We'll have a live report again discussing Steven Stamkos' impact Is it his last game? What he's done in this series, what he's done off the ice for this team. He really has been the glue for this group, and I know it's, hasn't been a successful series to this point, but still, he's been a huge positive. Then, tonight at 11, we will have highlights and reaction for you from this contest, win or lose. So, depending on the tenor, we'll see how the players are feeling and what kind of post-game comments we get. But ultimately, if I had to make a prediction about this contest, if I'm being completely honest, I'm not feeling great about it, feeling like a 4-2 L. But certainly, my photographer Angela is not a fan of that. That's just me being honest. Pull them for the 3-2 dub. But yeah, if they can win tonight, they're going to make a believer out of me. That's when I'm really gonna buy into they can pull this thing off. This is the key swing game. The only time the Bolts have came back from a 3-1 deficit is in 2011. Steven Stamkos and Victor Hedman were on that team. That squad overcame the deficit against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Twice recently, whether that was against the Colorado Avalanche or the Toronto Maple Leafs last year, they went on the road, trailing 3-1, won that game just to come back home and lose. So we'll have plenty more to talk about in the future, but for right now, 7 o'clock, puck drops from a rowdy environment here in Emirates Bank Arena. Thank you for joining us on the Facebook Live. Drop your comments below. Send your predictions. Yell at me for taking a terrible prediction in this game, but that, at least you know that I keep it $100 with you. So thank you again for joining us here, and thank you for joining us on 10tampabay.com, Facebook, social media. Check us out, and you can find me at Closky, WTSP, on Twitter/X.